This is Dumb Money versus Smart Money. And this is a program that we put together to discuss passive investors versus more active strategic investors into media companies. Obviously, given what's been going on lately on Wall Street and the current economic environment, we have to get a lot more creative if we're on the side representing companies that are seeking investment. And those who are doing the investments are also, looking at what's going on out there and maybe a little more skittish in terms of investments. So we're going to be talking about a whole variety of topics. We have a pretty ambitious outline, which is located inside your program materials. And there's also an article I put together on dealing with investments in companies and things that you need to watch out for when you're representing the target in that type of thing. First, we're going to introduce each one of the panelists here, and then we'll get right into it. My name is Leslie Ziegel. I'm a multimedia entertainment attorney based in Miami, Florida. My background is I worked on the business side producing music festivals for George Wein back in the 80s and 90s, such as the Newport Jazz Festival and the New Orleans Jazz Fest, as well as several entertainment marketing initiatives such as American Gold Card events and American Express Platinum Card by invitation only. I then moved to Miami from New York, where I attended law school and worked for 7 years as general counsel of BMG's Latin division. And after that, I went over to Greenberg Traurig as a partner heading up their entertainment division in Miami. And 2.5 years ago, I hung my own shingle, and I have a multimedia entertainment practice now where I do work in the television industry, the film industry, the music industry, as well as new media. And I've been representing investors making investments in film projects and other companies, as well as film producers who are receiving funds and everything in between. I'm also a partner in a film and television production company called White Buffalo Entertainment. We produce independent documentaries and films and television programs. With that, I'd like to turn it over to my co-moderator, Marcelino Ford Levine.
Thanks, Leslie. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marcelino Ford Levine, and I currently work at Intel Corporation and Intel's Digital Home Group, and I serve as the General Manager for Interactive Content and Advanced Advertising Development. I'll speak a little bit more about the work that we do there when we get into the panel, but I also am on the board of governors of the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, which awards the Emmy Awards.
I'm Frank Washington. I'm probably going to sound a bit like an apostate when I say I'm a reformed lawyer, meaning I don't practice anymore. However, in my distant past, I did work for a law firm, Arnold & Porter. Also worked in the Carter White House, the FCC during that reign as well. I've worked for 2 newspaper companies, and you won't be surprised when I tell you one of them is a company that no longer exists, Times Mirror. The other is a company that is right on the edge of the same destiny, McClatchy Newspapers. For about the last 20 years, I have I guess the description is a fundless sponsor. Basically, what I do is I put together deals and companies which I then bring investors to. In some cases, I act as the seed capital. In some cases, I act as the CEO. More often than not, I'm a principal and an investor.
Thanks, Frank. I'm Robert White. I head up the media and entertainment practice at an investment banking firm called Mosaic Capital, right across the street, actually. A short pitching wedge to my office. Prior to that, I headed up the media entertainment group of a New York-based investment bank called Morgan Joseph. You may have heard of them. They were quite famous with regard to doing SPAC, special purpose acquisition companies, over the last few years. And that firm was headed by Fred Joseph, who actually is of Drexel fame. He was the CEO of Drexel for 16 years. And I started my investment banking career at a firm called Daniels & Associates, where I eventually also headed up that radio and television practice. We are famous at Daniels, or we're famous at Daniels, for buying and selling every cable company in this country at least 3 times. Bill Daniels was the founder of cable television in 1954 in Boulder, Colorado. And I started my media career by building radio stations in Canada. I am from Canada, the youngest licensee in Canadian broadcasting history. And I built a little company called Home Shopping Network with my friend and partner, Bud Paxson, that we took public in 1986 on the American Stock Exchange. We were the fastest growing stock that year, where we actually tripled and split the stock 3 times. And then I foolishly became a banker in 1990, so helping guys like you raise capital for their projects.
Well, why don't we get started here, Robert? Obviously, you with your pedigree are smart money, but you do get a lot of capital as well, which we would term dumb money. Why don't you talk a little bit about some of the things you're doing right now, some of the trends, some of the benchmarks?
Well, I'm going to start by just reading this little bit here because I think it's so funny. This has to do with dumb money, and then I'm going to talk to you about an actual thing that I'm working on as of last week. This is called "Who Will Be the Next Fool?" And it goes on to say, the movie business reminds me of the old Charlie Rich tune, "Who Will Be the Next Fool?" And it talks about how the largest Indian conglomerate, Reliance, was making a huge investment here in Hollywood, followed by the people who had preceded them. First it was the Wall Street guys during the Steve Ross era, then it was the British and German tax shelters, then the French with Canal Plus and Warner, the TV group of Japanese and Korean equity investors, Australian equity through Village Roadshow, the tech moguls like Paul Allen, then the hedge funds, recently burned badly and very underreported, which is true because we haven't seen the results yet from all of the dismal investments that were made in film in Hollywood by the hedge funds. And everyone thought that they were the coolest kid on the block, but they all quickly retreated from the business, and I think that's true. And it goes on to say, and it ends by saying the last are the Indian investors and the Chinese, which is probably true. But with that gloom and doom of what's going on, particularly in the film business, I can report that my firm is working on a publishing deal that I'm heading up. It's a music publishing deal. And we're out raising in the marketplace in the first tranche $80 million, and a second tranche another $80 million in about 6 months. And we went to New York 2 weeks ago. We had 8 meetings set up with private equity firms. And I said to my clients on the way, look, times are bad, stock market's in flux, everybody's running scared. This could be, a complete waste of time. Of the 8 meetings, we've already received 6 term sheets of people that want to make this investment. And why is that? Well, first of all, because they've got to put money to work or they're basically out of business. So that's something you have to think about. So if you've got a good project with reoccurring revenues and the ability to increase the pool of potential revenue, you're going to get a term sheet. The second thing is that they've made some bad investments and they have to make some good ones. And investing in reoccurring revenues, whether it's catalogs, publishing, etc., is just a smart business move. And I think the third thing is that they want to stay in business, which is kind of part of the first. So it's a good time, actually, much to my surprise. And as I said to the guys when we had our warm-up call, I thank God that there's still people that want to make investments in media and entertainment. So there's money out there.
I kind of comment things from the operating side. I should have added in my introduction that I've operated in the cable, radio, and TV broadcast areas, as well as some interactive services. And currently I'm involved, I'm going to use 3 examples, although actually I'm involved in several other things as well. The first of these is a company called Crossings, which is a multi-ethnic language service. And the platform, apropos Mark Cuban's comments, is cable television, which I would absolutely agree with him about the power of cable today. The issue is, how do you get on cable? And we started this service in Sacramento, which a couple of years ago got the nomination as the most diverse city in the country. There's probably about half a dozen major groups in that market in addition to Spanish language. And we are their only outlet in that market. We bought what's called a low-power television station initially, which has an over-the-air presence, and our business strategy was to convince the cable company to carry us. Well, we convinced them to carry us not only in Sacramento, but throughout the entire Central Valley of California, which, for those of you who are familiar with the territory, ranges all the way from Fresno to Chico and has about somewhere around 700,000 ethnic homes that fit our target group. Why was the cable company willing to do that? Well, cable has been in a heck of a competitive battle with satellite TV, and the satellite guys kind of got the high ground on them while they weren't paying attention and really picked off a lot of the ethnic markets, and they did it with a diet of pay programming. What we were offering was a very basic service that would reach a large number of people, and the other key was that we are aligning ourselves with the cable operator to co-market Comcast, in the case of Sacramento, alongside the name of our company, Crossings. Our business plan was to take that approach to a number of different markets where there was the same combination of underserved ethnic language groups that we saw in Sacramento. And the first proof of the performance that we've had outside of Sacramento is that we signed a contract with Time Warner in New York City, where we're going to be launching next month. And we have a number of other cities that we've identified that we're hoping to use a similar tack with. Now, the importance of what we're talking about there is, as Mark Cuban alluded to, we're dealing in a highly fragmented environment. But we're looking to actually take advantage of that fragment by finding the most underserved, highest intensity of demands portions thereof. So that's an important piece of that strategy there.
Did you raise capital for that?
Yes, we have a private equity firm which is backing us. They're a smaller firm which is at the end of their fund.
Right.
And I'm glad you raised that, Robert, because we're actually looking for somewhere around $6 to $10 million in additional capital to build out the rest of those markets. Very quickly, just two other examples I want to touch on. A company called Sports TV Insider. For the real sports fans, this is a service basically that allows you to go on the line, identify the sports you're most interested in, the teams you're most interested in, and then no matter where you are based on zip code, this sends you either email messages or text alerts about all the events that you would be interested in seeing. The story there is we did that all on friends and family, and we are in discussions right now with I guess it's fair to say, iconic sports media company which is looking to buy us. And I can go into more detail because there's an interesting story inside that story. The third company I want to talk about also kind of fits this scheme of high intensity of demand focused markets. It's a service called Blackbird, and it is focused on the black community, serving it with a Mozilla-based browser. The concept, we believe, goes beyond just the black community, but the kind of platform that we're building could be applied to any high intensity of demand niche audience, and sports, for example, could be a representative of that. So I think you can kind of see the theme there. In the third case, I'm a contrarian, but apropos Robert's comments, and I'm sure anything that you see around, these are tough times, and the browser project, Blackbird, is not that far along, and we've pretty much concluded that we've gotten friends and family investment thus far. And what we're looking to now, because originally we would have liked to go out for some sort of institutional VC money, but we're really looking to kind of bootstrap this thing more. We've got our beta version of this service, which will be coming out within the next couple of weeks, and we're looking to bootstrap it by primarily looking to cut deals with channel partners and strategic partners as opposed to seeking institutional money. So we can go back and talk about all three of those in more detail.
Frank, just as a follow-up to that, do you find when you're out there looking to raise funds, and given all the talk of convergence, that investors, particularly smart money investors, are also looking to see where you're going from, let's say, an internet standpoint to generate revenues? Because in terms of the three models you talked about, with Crossings, that seems to be more just focused on cable, whereas the sports project is a combination, and then the Blackbird is strictly a internet play, so to speak.
That's a good question, Leslie, and I kind of did Crossings a disservice because A major feature of that is not only going to be the internet, but also mobile phone texting, because we know that particularly a number of the different Asian language groups, Filipinos, for example, use mobile telephones a great deal. And so that's going to be a line extension. I would say that any business, and by the way, I also own TV and radio stations, there's not one business that I'm in today that isn't looking to integrate cross-fertilize